is made dull by compulsion is already the beginning of intelligence, isn't it? And to see that a discipline which is merely a conformity to a pattern of action through fear, because that is what is implied in disciplining ourselves, because we are afraid not to get what we want. And so the mind, what happens when you discipline the mind? When you discipline your being, surely it becomes very hard, doesn't it? Unpliable, not quick, adjustable. Don't you know people who have disciplined themselves? If there are such people, the result is obviously a sense of decay in inward conflict which is put away, hidden away, but it's there burning. So our question is then, our problem is, seeing that discipline merely creates a habit, and a habit is not intelligence, and merely resistance. Such a habit is obviously cannot be productive of intelligence. Habit never is. Practice never is. You may be very clever with your fingers by practicing the piano. So our question is then, our problem is, seeing that discipline merely creates a habit, and a habit is not intelligence, and merely resistance. Such a habit is obviously cannot be productive of intelligence. Habit never is. Practice never is. You may be very clever with your fingers by practicing the piano or making something with your hands. But the intelligence is demanded to direct the hand. And we are now inquiring into that intelligence. You see somebody whom you consider happy or realized, and he does certain things, and you, wanting that happiness, imitate him. This imitation is called discipline, isn't it? Because we imitate in order to receive what he has. We copy in order to be happy, which you think he has. Is happiness come through discipline? And by practicing a certain rules, by practicing certain disciplines, mode of conduct, are you ever free? Surely there must be freedom for discovery, mustn't there? If you discover anything, you must be free inwardly, which is an obvious fact. Are you free by shaping your mind in a particular action, which we call discipline? Obviously you're not. You're merely a repetitive machine resisting according to a certain conclusion, according to a certain mode of conduct. So freedom cannot come through discipline. Freedom can only come into being with intelligence. And that intelligence can be awakened, or you have that intelligence the moment you see that any form of compulsion denies freedom, inwardly or outwardly. So the first requirement, not as a discipline, is obviously freedom. And virtue only gives that freedom. Greed is confusion. Anger is confusion. Bitterness is confusion. When you see that, obviously you are free of them. Not that you are going to resist them, but you see in that only in freedom you can discover. And any form of compulsion is not freedom, and therefore no discovery. Surely what virtue does is gives you freedom. The unvirtuous person is confused person. And in confusion, obviously, you can never discover anything. How can you? So, to see that virtue is not the end product of a discipline, but that virtue is freedom, which cannot come through any action which is not virtuous, which is not true to itself. And our difficulty is, most of us have read so much. Most of us have followed so many disciplines, superficially, getting up every morning certain hour, sitting in certain posture, trying to hold our minds in a certain way. You know, practice, discipline. Because we have been told if you do these things, you will get that. That do these things for a number of years, you'll have God at the end of it. I may put it crudely, but that's what is the basis of our thinking. Surely God doesn't come so easily as all that. That's mere marketable thing. I do this and you give me that. So, since most of us are so conditioned by external influences, by religious doctrines, beliefs, and by our own demand, inward demand to arrive at something, gain something, has so conditioned each one of us that it's very difficult for us to think of this problem anew without thinking in terms of discipline. So, first we must see very clearly the implications of discipline. How it narrows down the mind, limits the mind, compels the mind to a particular action through our desire, through influence and all the rest of it. And a conditioned mind, however conditioned so-called virtuously, cannot possibly be free and therefore understand reality. And since God, reality, or what you will name doesn't matter, can only come into being when there is freedom. And there is no freedom where there is compulsion, positively or negatively, through fear. There is no freedom if you are seeking an end. You are tied to that end. You may be free from the past, but the future holds you. And that's not freedom. And it is only in that freedom that one